The desert night had a strange silence to it, one that felt less like quiet and more like a warning. The wind had died suddenly, leaving the dunes frozen in place under the pale glow of the moon. Down in the excavation pit, Dr. Amara Salim tightened her grip on the torch, the flames flickering in nervous, uneven breaths. Everyone else had gone to sleep hours ago, but not Amara, not when something about this Staley refused to let her walk away. The slab of stone had emerged earlier that afternoon, half buried beneath collapsed mud brick walls. At first glance, it looked like just another Nubian artifact, worn smooth by time. But when she touched it, a faint warmth pulsed beneath her fingertips. Wrong, impossible warmth. Stones didn't hold heat like this after sunset. She had waited until the camp quieted to return alone. Amara knelt before the stele now, brushing away the last stubborn grains of sand. The symbols carved into its surface emerged slowly, sharp lines and curved strokes that almost resembled classical Kushite, but not quite. Some marks were too precise, too delicate, as if etched by a tool that shouldn't have existed thousands of years ago. She leaned in, bringing the torch closer, and the symbols moved. Amara's breath caught. At first it seemed like an illusion caused by the flame's wavering light, but no, this was deliberate. The characters slid and rearranged themselves like pieces of a puzzle shifting into place. She blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of it. A phrase appeared, clear as any inscription she'd ever read. "Seek the city the gods erased." The words lingered only a second before dissolving again into a scattered pattern of lines and curls. Her heart hammered. Ancient scripts didn't shift under light. Language didn't remake itself on stone. "What are you?" she whispered. The moment she spoke, the air seemed to tighten, the desert holding its breath. Footsteps scraped the sand behind her. Amara spun around, raising the torch instinctively. Jonas Hale, her research assistant, stood at the rim of the pit, his silhouette trembling in the firelight. His face was pale, paler than she had ever seen on the sun-hardened man. "Amara, you're still here." His voice sounded thin, strangled. "I found something," she said, trying to keep her tone steady. "Look at this." But Jonas didn't step closer. If anything, he pulled back. "What did it say?" he asked, eyes fixed on the stone. Not with curiosity, but with fear, raw and unhidden. She frowned. "You can come see for yourself." Jonas shook his head violently. "No, just tell me. Did the symbols change?" A cold prickle crawled up her arms. He shouldn't know that. No one should. "Jonas," she said slowly, "have you seen script like this before?" He swallowed hard, his throat bobbing. "We should rebury it. Tonight." "Amara, listen to me. Some things aren't meant." She stood, cutting him off. "This is a historical discovery, possibly the biggest of my life. I'm not reburying anything." Jonas glanced over his shoulder as if checking for someone else, then lowered his voice. "You don't understand what you've uncovered. This isn't just history." For a moment, his fear filled the pit more heavily than the darkness. Then, without warning, he turned and climbed out, stumbling as he nearly tripped on the ladder. Amara called after him, but he didn't stop. His silhouette disappeared into the camp shadows, as if fleeing something he dared not name. Amara was alone again. She turned back to the stele, the torchlight trembling in her hand. The symbols lay still, motionless, as if pretending to be ordinary. But she knew better now. Something was hidden inside this stone, something alive with intention, something that had waited centuries for the right eyes to see it. And judging by Jonas's terror, someone on her team had known about it long before she did. The next morning, the excavation site buzzed with a restless kind of energy. Workers hauled sand in rattling wheelbarrows, scholars huddled over fragments of pottery, and the desert sun burned down with merciless intensity. Yet beneath the ordinary rhythm, Amara felt a shift, as if everyone was watching her without quite watching her. Word had spread. It always did. She found Jonas gathering equipment near the supply tent, his hands trembling slightly as he coiled a rope. He barely looked at her when she approached. "Jonas, we need to talk about last night." But he stepped back. I shouldn't be involved in this. Just leave it alone, Amara." Before she could answer, he turned and walked away, leaving her alone with her uncertainty. But she didn't stay alone for long. Rumors travel faster than sandstorms. At lunchtime, as she entered the researcher's tent, conversations halted mid-sentence. Dr. Masika glanced at her clipboard with exaggerated disinterest. Professor Levin shot her a sharp, assessing look. Even the interns avoided meeting her eyes. Someone whispered loudly enough for her to hear, "She thinks she's discovered the lost capital. Ridiculous." Another voice. "We should pull funding before she embarrasses the project." Her stomach tightened. Lost capital? She had never mentioned any capital, only an inscription. Someone was twisting her discovery into something else, something dangerous. She set her tray down, trying to appear unfazed. "If anyone wants clarification," she said, "my findings are available for peer review." Professor Levin scoffed. "Findings? On an unverified inscription that half the team claims they didn't see?" Amara froze. Half the team? She had shown the stele only to Jonas. No one else had been near it. Someone was lying, and someone had already spread the rumor. The sudden collapse of support. By mid-afternoon, she received 3 emails. A notice that her university funding was being temporarily reevaluated. A withdrawal of equipment she'd requested for the next phase. A polite but clear message suggesting she reconsider the direction of her research. Her hands shook as she read. This wasn't skepticism. This was sabotage. She stormed into her tent to call her department chair, but before she could dial, her satellite phone buzzed with an incoming number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then answered. "Dr. Selim speaking." A calm, overly smooth voice replied, "Dr. Selim, I heard you've run into some resistance." Her pulse quickened. "Who is this?" "Someone who can help. Someone who believes your discovery is not only valid, but vital." Static crackled. The voice lowered. "If you want answers, come to the coordinates I'm sending. Travel alone and tell no one where you're going." Amara's breath caught. Why the secrecy? A pause. "Because, Dr. Selim, not everyone at your dig site wants the truth uncovered." The line went dead. A message appeared on her screen. Coordinates. A time. A single word. Tonight. The choice. The tent walls fluttered in the hot wind, shadows rippling across Amara's equipment. She stood there, torn between fear and the magnetic pull of possibility. A forbidden Kushite capital, a hidden message in a stone that rearranged itself, a colleague who fled from a truth he already knew. And now, an anonymous benefactor inviting her deeper into the mystery. Amara closed her fist around the phone, the coordinates burning in her mind. Whatever she had stepped into, it was bigger than archaeology, far bigger, and it had already begun. The desert stretched endlessly, a vast ocean of gold beneath the scorching midday sun. Every step Amara took sank into fine sand that whispered secrets of 1,000 forgotten years. Beside her, Khalid, a local historian who had agreed to guide her, moved silently, his eyes scanning every ridge and dune, as though the landscape itself spoke to him. They had been following the coordinates from the anonymous message for hours, winding through narrow canyons and jagged rock formations. Eventually, they arrived at a hidden plateau, an area that, until today, had never appeared on any map she'd seen. And there, half buried beneath centuries of windblown sand, was the first clue, a stone platform etched with symbols that pulsed faintly under her torchlight. Her heart pounded. This was it, the first physical trace of the legendary Heart of Ra, a mysterious material whispered about in Kushite lore. Ancient texts hinted it could store energy, manipulate light, and power devices long before humanity had learned to forge metal with precision. But until now, no one had found proof. She knelt to examine a shard of obsidian embedded in the platform, running her fingers over the smooth, unnaturally warm surface. It hummed softly, as if alive, a vibration that made her fingertips tingle. This isn't just ceremonial stone," she whispered, almost to herself. "It's something else." Khalid stiffened. His eyes darkened. "Do not say its name," he warned, his voice low, sharp. "Not here. Not ever." "I'm sorry," Amara said, confused. "The Heart of Ra, it's what I'm looking for. How else do we—" Khalid cut her off, stepping closer, his hand twitching as if he might strike the ground itself. The heart of Ra carries a curse, Dr. Selim. Legends say those who call it aloud are marked. Some never return. Amara's pulse quickened. A curse? Khalid, this is science, history. You don't understand. His eyes flared, dark and dangerous. This is older than Egypt, older than Kush itself. The material, the energy, it is not just dangerous. It chooses who touches it, and it remembers. A shiver ran down her spine. Even the air felt heavier here, vibrating with a hum that matched the obsidian's pulse. Sand shifted at her feet without wind. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the rocks, and a faint golden shimmer played at the edges of her vision. Amara tried to steady herself. Her logical mind resisted the fear curling through her veins. She had studied myths, curses, and superstitions before. They were just stories, right? And yet, Khalid's reaction, the warmth, the vibration beneath her fingers, and the whisper of energy through the stone, all told a different story. This changes everything, she murmured, tracing the patterns carved into the platform. If this is what the legends say it is, Kush was not just advanced, it was revolutionary. They controlled power we can't even begin to understand. Khalid's jaw tightened. He cast a wary glance over the dunes. And that is why the world must never know it exists, because there are those who would kill, or worse, to claim it. Amara swallowed hard. The desert seemed to close in around them. She could almost feel the pulse of the heart beneath the sand, calling to her, beckoning her deeper into the mystery. Somewhere in the distance, a solitary bird cried out. But here, beneath the plateau and the scorching sun, silence ruled. And the desert was listening. The sun had begun its slow descent, turning the desert sky into a molten canvas of reds and golds. Amara and Khalid trudged across an uneven plateau, each step stirring clouds of sand that danced like ghosts in the fading light. Ahead of them rose the first signs of the hidden temples, tall, slender spires carved directly from the sandstone cliffs, their surfaces etched with symbols that shimmered faintly in the waning sun. Amara's heart raced. These temples were unlike any she had studied or seen in the textbooks. The walls were perfectly aligned, not with the rising or setting sun, but with stars that modern astronomers had yet to chart. Constellations she had only glimpsed in obscure mythological texts seemed to float over the temple rooftops as if the heavens themselves had bent to Kushite design. She ran her hands along the carvings. Fine grooves traced patterns too precise to be made by simple chisels. The markings resembled celestial maps, but there were anomalies. Lines intersecting at impossible angles, symbols that hinted at knowledge of planetary motion far beyond their era. Whoever built these temples had understood the cosmos with a sophistication that stunned her. This is far beyond anything Egypt achieved at the time, she whispered, awe and disbelief battling in her chest. They weren't just astronomers, they were architects of the stars. Khalid's voice cut sharply through her reverie. Do not touch everything, he warned. His eyes darted nervously over the walls. Some places were meant to remain hidden. Others were erased for a reason. Amara frowned. Erased? You mean someone has been here before us? Khalid nodded, grim. Long before modern explorers arrived, pieces of these temples were deliberately destroyed, hidden, or removed. Only fragments remain. Whoever tampered with them knew exactly what they were protecting. A chill prickled along her spine. She looked around. Small depressions in the sand suggested recent disturbances. Footprints partially covered by wind, stone shards that had been carefully chipped away. It was clear she was not the first to walk this path, and she might not be the last. Amara's eyes were drawn to a central chamber, a doorway framed by twin obelisks carved with symbols of unknown origin. She knelt to inspect the threshold. Tiny grooves lined the edges, mechanical traces, as if the temple itself contained hidden mechanisms. Her pulse quickened. These aren't just decorations. They're functional. It's a machine. Khalid's gaze darkened. Some call it a temple. Some call it a warning. What you are about to enter, Dr. Selim, may reveal truths the world is not ready for. Her torch flickered as she peered inside. Shadows pooled in the corners, stretching unnaturally. Strange instruments, triangular mirrors, polished obsidian lenses, and metal rods were arranged in precise geometric patterns that suggested purpose and power. Star maps were etched into the floor, aligned not with north, but with a pattern only visible when sunlight fell at a certain angle. Amara swallowed hard. This was no ordinary temple. Someone had been here centuries ago and had left behind a puzzle, an intricate blueprint of cosmic knowledge meant to survive, but only for those daring enough to understand it. She took a deep breath, stepping closer to the entrance. The desert wind howled across the cliffs, carrying with it a whisper that made her skin prickle. Someone or something was watching, waiting, guarding the secrets embedded in stone and sky. And Amara realized with a thrill that bordered on fear, uncovering the truth about these temples could change everything they knew about Kush. The universe itself had been written into stone, and she was standing at its threshold. The night was colder than any Amara had expected in the desert. Shadows pooled beneath jagged rocks, and the wind carried a faint, almost mournful whistle across the canyon. The temples had given her a glimpse of Kushite genius, but the tombs promised something far darker, a story written in stone and blood. Amara and Khalid approached the burial site cautiously. The entrance gaped like a maw in the sandstone cliffs, its doorway carved with symbols warning trespassers away. Yet centuries of sand had eroded the warnings, leaving only faint traces. She stepped inside, torch held high, revealing walls decorated with intricate reliefs, depictions of Kushite rulers, priests, and celestial patterns. But the deeper she went, the more she noticed the anomalies. The chambers were not simply old, they were violated. Walls bore jagged gouges, floors were cracked as if something had forced its way out from within, and sarcophagi were overturned or smashed. Bones lay scattered, but not in the disorder of natural decay. These tombs had been deliberately sabotaged. Amara knelt beside a broken sarcophagus, her torch illuminating the fragmented pieces of a finely carved lid. "This isn't just vandalism," she whispered. "Someone wanted to erase them, or hide something." Khalid's eyes darted nervously. Some tombs were destroyed from within, centuries ago, the Kushites themselves. Some feared the knowledge they were bearing. They didn't want it to survive. Amara's gaze fell on a sealed sarcophagus, unusually intact amidst the ruin. Its surface was cold, smooth and unbroken, unlike the others. She traced her fingers along the hieroglyphs. It didn't depict a ruler, nor a priest, but a woman, draped in robes decorated with celestial patterns. A name inscribed in Kushite script read, Princess Nefertari of the Hidden Sun. Her heart raced. She felt an electric thrill. This tomb was untouched for a reason. Carefully, she pushed at the lid, half expecting it to resist. To her astonishment, it moved easily. Inside, there was no corpse, no mummified remains. Instead, Amara found a carefully folded scroll, sealed with wax. She broke it open, revealing a coded warning, written in intricate hieroglyphs only readable with the knowledge she had begun to uncover. The words trembled with urgency. "The heart of Ra must never fall into mortal hands. Betrayal waits among the living. Those who seek it risk the doom of kingdoms." Amara's torch flickered, shadows dancing along the walls. She felt the weight of centuries pressing down. This wasn't just a warning about material wealth or conquest, it was a message from the past, a desperate plea from a princess who foresaw her kingdom's downfall. Khalid swallowed hard. They sabotaged their own tombs, to protect the secrets, to hide what they feared the world would misuse. Amara rolled the scroll carefully, securing it in her pack. Her pulse pounded. The sabotage, the inscriptions, the temples, they were all connected. Someone had fought to erase Kushite brilliance, to erase history itself. And now, centuries later, she was the first to uncover what they had tried to bury forever. But the knowledge came with a price. Every step forward brought danger closer, not just from the desert or the elements, but from those who might already be watching, waiting for a misstep. She exhaled slowly, steeling herself. This discovery was just the beginning, and the tombs whispered a chilling truth. Kush's secrets were not meant to remain hidden, but they were deadly to those who dared unearth them. The desert had turned violent overnight. A sudden sandstorm swept across the plateau, twisting dunes into jagged waves and transforming the horizon into a haze of ochre and gray. Amara tightened her scarf over her face, the abrasive wind biting through every layer of clothing. Khalid, usually unflappable, was crouched behind a jagged rock, scanning the storm with unease. They had barely made it back to the excavation site when the storm hit with full force. Visibility dropped to mere meters, and the rhythmic roar of sand against stone drowned out thought itself. Amara shouted Khalid's name over the wind, but the sound was swallowed instantly. When she finally found him, he was staring at the remnants of their supply cache, and what she saw froze her blood. Half of their equipment was gone. Tools, food, water, and even her carefully cataloged maps had vanished. Sand covered what remained, as though the storm had buried more than just the lost supplies. But the worst part was the absence of Khalid's usually calm presence. "Khalid!" she yelled, pushing through the whipping wind. But there was no answer, only the swirling desert and the crackle of her own heartbeat in her ears. Then she spotted something gleaming in the sand, a golden pendant etched with intricate markings she recognized from her studies, the sigil of the infiltrator dynasty, the very line of Kushite blood entrusted to keep the heart of Ra hidden. The pendant had been placed deliberately, not lost in the chaos. Her stomach turned. The implication was clear. Someone close to her was part of the ancient conspiracy. Someone she had trusted. She sank to her knees, brushing away the sand to examine the pendant. Its weight was heavier than it should have been, as if it carried centuries of secrets within its delicate filigree. She felt a chill crawl up her spine. This was no ordinary loss. It was a message, a warning, and a betrayal rolled into one. The storm intensified, whipping her hair into her face and stinging her skin with sand. She struggled to stand, gripping the pendant tightly in her hand. Her mind raced. Had Khalid taken it, or someone else entirely? And why now in the middle of the storm? A sudden gust nearly knocked her off her feet. Sand whipped across her eyes and she squinted to see a shadow retreating into the swirling chaos. She blinked and it was gone. Alone in the heart of a raging desert, Amara realized the truth. The storm had not just stripped them of supplies, it had exposed the first crack in her team. Trust was no longer absolute. Allies could be enemies, and the secrets of Kush were more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Clutching the pendant to her chest, she whispered to the desert, "I will find the truth. Whoever you are, whoever betrayed me, I will uncover you." The storm raged on as if testing her resolve, and deep in the shifting sand, centuries-old eyes seemed to watch her vow. The desert night was eerily still, the storm long gone, leaving only the quiet hum of wind over shifting dunes. Amara sat cross-legged in her tent, the golden pendant from the storm resting on the table before her. Its intricate symbols seemed to pulse faintly under the dim lantern light, as if urging her to understand something beyond comprehension. She spread out the fragments of notes, sketches, and hieroglyphs she had collected from temples, tombs, and the ruined stele. Slowly, painstakingly, a horrifying picture emerged. Kush did not fall to Egypt. Her hands trembled as the words took shape on the page. For centuries, historians had been told that Egypt's armies had conquered Kush, that the kingdom had simply vanished. But every piece of evidence she had uncovered told a different story. Scholars and priest kings from Kush had quietly embedded themselves in Egyptian dynasties. Generals and strategists had influenced campaigns and political decisions from within the throne room. Even queens and consorts in the pharaonic bloodline bore Kushite blood, their presence masked as ordinary royal marriages. The kingdom had not been erased by conquest. It had infiltrated from within. Amara's thoughts turned to Khalid. She glanced at the empty corner where he had sat earlier. The pieces clicked into place. His family, his warnings, the sudden panic during the storm. "Khalid," she whispered, realization cutting through the fatigue. "Your family. They were part of this. They were sworn to keep the secret safe." She remembered his eyes when she first spoke the words, "Heart of Ra." The fear, the warning. It all made sense now. He was not just a guide. He was a guardian of a legacy older than recorded history, a living thread linking her to the kingdom that had disappeared into the shadows of time. Her pulse quickened. This revelation was more than academic. If she exposed it, she would not only rewrite history, she would uncover the hidden influence Kush had wielded over one of the most powerful civilizations the world had ever known. But the consequences were terrifying. Allies, enemies, scholars, even governments. They would all have a stake in controlling or silencing this knowledge. She leaned back, staring at the ceiling of her tent, the desert wind carrying the faint echo of a distant, unseen presence. The centuries of secrecy pressed down on her. Every temple she had explored, every tomb sabotaged, every shifting symbol of the stele, everything had been part of a plan to protect the truth. And now she held it in her hands. A shiver ran down her spine. Knowledge this powerful came with a price. The heart of Ra, the infiltrator bloodlines, the hidden city. It was all connected, and the world was not ready for it. Yet despite the fear, a flicker of determination burned within her. She was the first to uncover it in centuries, perhaps millennia. And whether she wanted it or not, the truth of Kush demanded to be faced. Amara whispered into the still night, her voice steady despite the storm of thoughts in her mind. History will know the truth, even if I have to survive the consequences alone. Outside, the desert seemed to pulse in response, as if acknowledging the beginning of a reckoning long overdue. Amara awoke to the trembling of the earth. At first she thought it was a dream, a trick of exhaustion, but the subtle rumble grew into a low, resonant vibration beneath her tent. Dust fell from the tent frame, and the desert floor seemed to shift, whispering in an ancient tongue she almost recognized. She grabbed her torch and rushed outside. The desert horizon had changed. Where there had been only endless dunes and jagged cliffs, now a massive structure rose abruptly from the sand. A pyramid, perfectly preserved, its golden sandstone glowing faintly in the dawn light. Amara's breath caught. The pyramid was unlike any she had studied, its angles slightly irregular, yet precise, its walls etched with symbols she had never seen before. The carvings seemed alive, shimmering as the first rays of sunlight struck the stone. Khalid was already there, staring in disbelief. It wasn't on any maps, he whispered, his voice trembling. No one knew it was here. Amara approached cautiously, her hand brushing against the cool surface. The stone pulsed under her touch, almost as if recognizing her presence. Her pulse quickened. This pyramid had not simply been hidden. It had chosen to reveal itself now. She studied the entrance, where murals ran along the walls, depicting not just ancient Kushite life, but scenes that were eerily familiar. One mural showed a woman kneeling in the desert, holding a torch over a stele, exactly as she had done weeks ago. Another depicted her crossing the plateau with a guide, sand swirling around them like the storm that had taken Khalid's supplies. Her heart raced. This pyramid, it knew her. She was the one foretold. Khalid's voice broke through her shock. The texts speak of a seeker, he said, a chosen one meant to uncover the lost secrets. I didn't believe it, until now. Amara's eyes scanned the murals again. Each one seemed to anticipate her actions, walking the temples, discovering the tombs, surviving the storm. The implication was undeniable. The pyramid was alive in memory and prophecy, linking the past with the present. She stepped inside, the air cool and surprisingly still. The interior walls were lined with cryptic inscriptions and bas-reliefs depicting celestial patterns. Torches mounted in brackets ignited on their own as she passed, casting a golden glow across the chamber. It was a temple, a library, and a warning all at once. The pyramid itself seemed to communicate, guiding her forward with its architecture. And yet, a sense of foreboding gnawed at her. She was not alone. Somewhere in the shadows of history and prophecy, eyes watched, waiting to test the resolve of the seeker. Amara took a deep breath, her fingers tracing the hieroglyphs that glimmered under her torchlight. The desert had chosen her to uncover what centuries had tried to hide. She was standing at the heart of Kush's greatest secret, and the path forward was both breathtaking and terrifying. Somewhere deep within the pyramid, the murals hinted at the next chapter of the kingdom's story, but she dared not rush. One wrong move, one misinterpretation, and the centuries of protection could turn deadly. The desert outside